Normally when I talk about apocalypse, most people think I'm about to talk about this guy, or maybe these places. But today, I'm talking about the end of the world. And welcome back to the heart of the stories we tell, a series where I spend way too much time thinking about what makes a story. And today's episode is Apocalyptian Horror Stories. And we're back for our Halloween countdown. The month of October is all about Halloween here, and as such we're asking, what are horror stories, and why do we tell them? Well, we started off with Five Nights at Freddy's and talking about jump scares and roller coasters. Then we went to cosmic horror with H.P. Lovecraft. The idea of forbidden knowledge, a secret truth, and monsters behind our comprehension. Then we went on to something a little more closer to home, as we looked into a YouTube artist who might be the next Lovecraft. And from there, we're moving on now. If you're interested in seeing these, you can click on those annotations on the screen, or subscribe for more of my insane theories. For now, let's get on with the show. I'll let someone else tell you how this starts.
Yeah, don't you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah, can't you feel the fear that I'm feeling today? If the button is pushed, there'll be no running away. Yeah, no one to save the world in its grave. Take a look around, boy, it's bound to scare you, boy, so don't tell me over and over and over again, my friend, that you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction.
The apocalypse of Revelations, the end of the world, the riding of the four horsemen, the time when everything comes to an end. Not exactly a cheery thought for this Halloween, but one that gets told in horror stories all the time. And it's important to differentiate. They're action-adventure and they're a horror, and they can both be apocalyptian. Just off the top of my head, Thundar the Barbarian and Thundercats both exist in worlds that, although I might not have realized it as a kid, were post-apocalypse. So does Command D, named after the Command D bunker from DC Comics. However, neither of them are really horror stories. Neither is Mad Max. Neither is Waterworld. However, the first real time I had a horror story is one that made me stay up at night because it scared the junk out of me. Stephen King's The Stand. Now, The Stand is probably the greatest encapsulation of the idea of this horror. It has the drama and the suspense of the disease. It has the coming together for survival of the plucky survivors. And it also has an enemy. It has a monster. And the whole thing builds on suspense and, well, it's a Stephen King story. What else do you expect? Now, the other end of it is the TV show Jeremiah. Jeremiah has almost the exact same basic plot. There's this disease, there are these survivors, we're going to take a look, there are even enemies and bad guys, and you know what the difference is? The Stand is all about the suspension of, oh my god, how are we going to do this? What has happened? Jeremiah is all about, we're going to survive this, we're going to fight to take back our world. That's the difference between an action-adventure and a horror apocalyptic story. So now that we've differentiated what is and isn't a horror story about the apocalypse, we need to talk about why. What are the reasons we might tell a horror story about the end of the world? Well, let's go back to that first video for a minute. When we talk about the roller coaster effect, the ups and downs, the adrenaline rush, that's again a lot of why we tell horror stories. That rush of, oh my god, I'm in danger, but I'm really safe. Now, in the case of the apocalypse, there's another reason why we might be doing it as an allegory for religious beliefs. However, this is my Halloween video, not my religion video, so we're going to stick a pin in that, as in a pin that might never be pulled. We'll see if I ever do anything about the religious stuff. Feel free, if you want, to comment down below. Do you think I should or shouldn't do a religious stories video? I'm kind of on the fence. Now, for a moment, let's talk about types of apocalypses, because, believe it or not, we have subgenres for this. One of the more popular ways of killing everyone in the world nowadays is the zombie fetish. Specifically, the Walking Dead. Sometimes magical, sometimes no explanation, sometimes some sort of bioweapon creates them. Any way you look at it, these slow lumbering, well, mostly slow lumbering, I guess there are zombies too. These undead monsters are people that have now been turned against you, and if you get bit, you're infected, and if you're infected, you're a zombie. If you take rabies and you take PCP and you mix them all together, you have the super juice that makes zombies, something that is necrotic and brings you back, but at the same time makes you super strong and angry. Romero created the base concept of what the zombie is, at least the modern interpretation. And when he did, he made it a theme and a symbol of capitalism, of the masses. Now, over the years, the zombie has become many types of things, but in general, it's that horror of having to turn on your fellow man. But it's far from the only type of apocalypse, even if it's the most common, because then there's natural disasters, or not so natural. Not exactly a new phenomenon. Gilgamesh and Noah both had natural disasters that caused apocalypses, and that's where this gets interesting, because they can be localized or they can be worldwide. Modern storytellers mostly go worldwide. An earthquake, a volcano, a comet, an asteroid, a tornado, a sharknado. Okay, maybe I don't want to talk about that last one. Some of these movies have green thought, things where they're trying to push the agenda. The world is dying because of man. Some of them are really just disasters. Hey, no one could have seen coming. And some of them are man-made ones specifically to show us that we shouldn't be messing with nature. But any way you look at it, it's still such an overwhelming threat. The monster of the movie is nature itself. And you know what they say, nature's a mother. But not just big things, because you see, not just when the whole world is turning against you, sometimes when just microbes are. The virus is another way to end the world. So this one overlaps a little bit because, like I said, zombie plague is a type of plague, but zombie, I think, has its own. And we already talked about The Stand and Jeremiah, which both were also disease. So let's talk about a few other ones for a moment. Cabin fever and outbreak were both very localized, although very scary. Well, mostly scary. Cabin fever was maybe more of a comedy of the two. 12 Monkeys was all about the outbreak of a disease that could wipe out most of, if not all of humanity. The X-Men cartoon in the 90s even had a pretty good run where Bishop and Cable both come back in time, to one to stop the plague, one to keep the plague, because the plague needs to happen for the other one's future to happen, or else you'd be wiping out others. That's a time travel thing, we're not going to talk about it. But in general, the idea of the bug, the disease that can wipe out mankind, is a very real threat in this day and age. In fact, it's one so real that it's probably the one we're worried about the most in the real world. The only one that's both scarier and more possible in the real world, I guess, would be the nuke. And I could be here all day listing shows and movies and stories with nukes in them. But regardless whether it ended with a bite, a bug, or a bomb, the whole idea of this is the world's going to come to an end. Maybe that's part of the horror, the not knowing, because no one knows how they're going to die or how the world's going to end. Well, except maybe Kosh.
How will this end?
In fire.
All joking aside, it's one of the few things that all of these stories have in common. That one theme, that one strand that a lot of apocalyptic stories have. Those survivors, the people who come together, the best part of human nature. If you remember way back when I said that sometimes the reason we tell children the stories about dragons is to teach them to beat dragons, well, part of this is the beauty of we all come together as one. We form a new community. We start over from scratch. We rebuild society. We survive. And I don't know, there is a certain point when everyone's going to die. It's the one sad truth about life. No one makes it out alive. And there's even going to come a point when we as a species are going to just vanish. If not before then when the sun expands in a few billion years. However, we tell horror stories to remind us how horrifying things are and to give us a break, to give us that edge, that imagination, that push, that everything's going to be okay, because at the end of the day, we survived The Walking Dead. Now, this series has almost drawn to a conclusion, because you see, next Sunday, when I upload, Sunday night, that Monday is Halloween. So we're going to wrap this all up then. We're going to pick and choose a little bit from each of the ones I've done so far, and put it all together into one final look, and look at the idea of Halloween itself, and maybe even a little bit of the history of that. Now, I didn't cover every type of horror movie because, well, I would have had to have made practically 4 videos a week to do it. The one I wish I had gotten to, though, was maybe movie monsters. I'll need to keep that in mind for next year. In the meantime, what I need you to do is leave me a comment. Let me know. Did you like doing a whole month as one theme? I know that some of my best hit videos so far was the 2-week part that I did on why we write war stories. So I was hoping that this would do the same. So let me know. Would you rather me do smaller increments, bigger increments? Maybe push these off and do bigger videos, but only do them maybe once a month? I'm going to try to fit this in between my reviews of the TV shows that we're watching, but let me know down in the comments what you think. Just remember,
Over and over and over again, my friend, that you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction.
so for now, I need you to like, subscribe, and share this video so that we can grow this community, and then join me back here next time as we take a walk through the heart of the stories we tell. Thanks for watching.